up. 'Cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking. Going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time. And I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. You got me up tonight. 'Cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I won't be turning around. No, I won't be turning around. It's the right time. You feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. I think I'll do it on my way. I'm gonna show you what I'm going through. Get you out of your comfort zone. 'Cause I need more of the truth right now. It's time that you made your mind up. 'Cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking. Going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time. And I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. You got me up tonight. 'Cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high.
Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some race reaction for the 2020 Tuscan Grand Prix. You know that race where nothing was going to happen, it'd be a procession, it'd be really boring. Wow. How are you all feeling after that one? I'd imagine a little bit shell-shocked. Absolute ruddy chaos. We will talk about that in as much length as we possibly can. Don't forget, this is a reaction, not a review, so I think there'll be a lot of Jesus Christ, what just happened going on. But yes, very certainly entertaining. That's what we'll go with. Certainly entertaining. And actually, quite a weird race. I'll talk about it, Dan, in a second, but we kind of had all that chaos at the start. Then it kind of dropped off a little bit, and then it all picked up again at the end. So I think the best way to describe that race is probably crash happy. I think that's the way to go. But let's have a look at this race result then, as we always do at the start of these. Lewis Hamilton taking his 90th win, moving to within one of Michael Schumacher. Second, Valtteri Bottas, 4.8 seconds back. Alexander Albon, I'm so pleased for him. So pleased for him. He needed that this weekend. Kind of the perfect way as well to respond to that win from Gasly last week. Third place for him. Fourth for Daniel Ricciardo, so close to a podium. And that tattoo, as Sky kept talking about, for Cyril. Fifth place for Sergio Perez. Sixth for Lando Norris. It's seventh for Daniel Kvyat. Charles Leclerc, eighth. That's like a win for Ferrari these days, isn't it? Kimi Raikkonen dropped to 9th after a 5-second time penalty. 10th place for Sebastian Vettel. Oh, Georgie Russell. P11. Oh, I'm gutted. He was so close as well. 12th place for Romain Grosjean, the last of the classified finishers. And here's your retirements list. Lance Stroll, massive accident. He retired. Esteban Ocon at the second start. We had 3. Second start had brake failure or brake fire, which melted his rear brakes. He retired. Latifi, Magnussen, Giovinazzi and Sainz were all involved in a massive crash on the start-finish straight. And then Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly got tangled up at turn 2, the chicane, in an incident on the first lap. I mean, yeah, utter chaos. How are you feeling, Dan? Good afternoon, mate. That was a little bit mental.
Good afternoon. Just a bit, wasn't it? I'm surprised there's not another red flag. We got so used to seeing them today. So many starts. Goodness me. But I really quite enjoyed that one. So thanks for having me, bud.
No worries. I might just put a red flag on the screen, just randomly every now and again in the stream. I'll just go, right, guys, we're going to take a couple of minutes if that's all right. Absolute chaos. I mean, we like to talk about the top 3, and we will do in a minute. We've got to talk about just how, because it's the big talking point, isn't it? How incident-packed it was. We had, what's that line that Martin Brundle, like, is it 3 into 1? Doesn't go. That was what we saw at turn 2, the chicane between Max Verstappen, Pierre Gasly, Kimi Raikkonen, somebody on the outside of Pierre Gasly. Essentially, Gasly getting sandwiched between 2 cars, smacking into the Alpha. The Alpha then goes flying into the back of the Red Bull. Nothing that he could do. And your man, Romain Grosjean, somehow, despite ending up, I'm sure, in the wall, managed to keep going. I mean, that was insane. What a start.
Yeah, we'd seen it a little bit with the junior series, hadn't we? It'd always been a little bit carnage all the way through the weekend. And pretty much the exact incident that happened with Kimi, Gasly and Grosjean happened with Formula 2 with Mick Schumacher and also in Formula 3 this morning. So I wasn't expecting a crazy Grand Prix, but I certainly wasn't expecting a manic start like we saw at the beginning. And right in front of that incident, we had another incident with Stroll and Sainz whacking into each other as well. So pretty much carnage from the off. And as we saw it certainly didn't end there.
No, but was it Stroll? Stroll was kind of on the outside of Sainz, wasn't he? And they've just made a bit of contact and Sainz has gone round. One of those first lap things which we see quite often in Formula 1. But then we got safety car for that. And then the safety car restart. It's caused a bit of controversy. First of all, I don't think Bottas is to blame there. I don't think he's done anything wrong. That is his prerogative. As they like to say on Sky, he's allowed to set the pace as the de facto safety car, nicking all of Martin Brundle's lines here. Why not? I don't think he's done anything wrong there. He's not sort of accelerating and then slamming the brakes on, then accelerating like we used to see years ago in Formula 1. That's definitely stopped in recent years. So he wasn't doing that. But all of those at the back are kind like trying to preempt almost, aren't they, who's going to go and when. And so you've got cars in the midfield who are accelerating and backing off and accelerating and backing off. And then you just got this concertina effect. I hate these horrible cliches from Sky, but they are absolutely spot on with what they mean. Best way to describe them. You've got this situation where cars are just almost ploughing into the back of each other, and all of a sudden, they do all plough into the back of each other, and we lost, what was it in the end? There was, what did I say on that race result? We lost Sainz, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, and Latifi, so that's 4 cars involved in that incident. Again, your man Grosjean just about avoiding being involved. You see a crash and you go, that'll be Grosjean, but it wasn't. Unbelievable. But I mean, first of all, the key thing to understand, or the key thing to state, I suppose, is that everybody was fine. Carlos Sainz, possible bit of injury to his hand, a sore hand, because it was quite an impact. But, I mean, do you put any blame at Bottas's door, Dan? I've seen a few people on social media have sort of said that maybe he is to blame. I think Stewart said at first glance it looked that way, but on reflection, absolutely not. Or was it just one of those things? Was it people in the midfield trying to preempt, which you should probably never do in a Formula One car at restarts?
Yeah, I wouldn't put the blame at Bottas's door. And actually, I think in fairness to Valtteri, it was quite a strong restart, because I think it was whoever was behind Hamilton was right at behind Hamilton charging for him. We didn't really get to see a fat lot of it because of all the carnage in the background. But I think it was more Nicholas Latifi getting a little bit jumpy. I'm not too sure if that was his first safety car restart. It certainly would be one of his first in Formula One. And I think K-Mag as well jumped on that and expected a similar kind of thing. Both of them slowed down, went opposite ways, and everyone behind just ploughed into them. I'm a bit confused on what we can do to stop that, because we saw it a couple of times last year in F2 in Baku, I believe it was, and that was where it was round kind of a blind corner. And I wonder if today, because of the nature of the straight, where it's kind of like a little bit of a hill, isn't it? I wonder maybe if that caught them out potentially. Not quite sure how close they were closing in on the guys in front, or whether it was just they did generally get caught out by Bottas and the likes in front. So it is I mean, we've never seen this for years and years and years in Formula One. It is a very irregular incident. But like you say, I think the most important thing is everyone's okay. Especially Giovinazzi getting almost squeezed and flipped up into the air. Thank goodness we've got the halo. We've had quite a few incidents now where the halo has been fantastic. So I'm glad to see all those arguments are way out the way now. And yeah, I was very surprised to see Grosjean make it out of it, to be honest. I mean, the onboard from him and Sebastian Vettel, goodness me, utter carnage. It's one of those incidents. From a kind of fan and horrible point of view, it's great to see a big smash like that. But at the same time, that, you know, when you did see those onboards up close, that was a really, really scary incident.
There's a picture coming up in a bit of Romain Grosjean at the first red flag, I think it is, with his hands in the air, like, what the hell? That's what summed up Grosjean's race for me. I put it on Twitter. How the hell are you still in this race? It was incredible.
Yeah.
For once, avoiding pretty much all the chaos in many ways. But what I will say on Bottas is, if when you watch the onboard, he seems to go after the accident has happened, if that makes sense. So he kind of, the accident happens just as he goes. So I can't put the blame at Bottas's door. I think people are just trying to preempt things. People in chat say maybe Russell. I'll need to see some more on boards on that one before I make any kind of call on that. But you talk about surprise. I normally do super chats at the end, but I've got to shout this one out, as I'm sure people will completely understand. Thank you. Incredible, huge thank you to Charles Edward Cheese for the massive $500 donation. That is insane. Thank you so much. We are so much closer, Dan, to being able to show footage. Come on. Oh, I'm coming for you, FOM. Thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate that. It just says, oh my God, 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 and etc. I think that's how we all were today, but massively appreciate that. So thank you so much, Charles. Yeah, I'll give you a shout out as well later for that one in the stream. I'll do all of the super chats towards the end as we normally do when we get to Q&A. But thank you, Charles. Massively appreciate that. Back to the race, though. Yeah, no fault on Bottas for me on that one. I think that's one of those things we see. You know, that leader has every right to dictate the pace, and that's absolutely fine with me. But I do wonder if they'll look at the rule with the safety car line again, Dan, because obviously it used to be that you couldn't overtake before the first safety car line. So then they changed it after all the stuff in Baku, according to some people on Twitter explained it to me, that they've changed the rule because of the dangerous restarts in Baku, to the point where it would be the start-finish line that dictates when drivers can start overtaking. So I wonder if maybe going back to the rule at the safety car line, because that will stop this weaving and slow driving down the start-finish straight a bit, because they'll have to come off that final corner quickly because they need to try and make sure they stay ahead before the safety car line. But Yeah, I think that's a rule that needs revisiting. But from Bottas's point of view, he did the right thing. He can't come off that corner quickly because then Hamilton's got the toe all the way down the straight and he's past whatever happens, isn't he? He's got no chance into turn one and possibly could fall multiple places as well. So I think that's the way to go. But just quickly, Dan, would you take a look at that rule or do you think it is just track specific to places like Baku and Mugello?
Yeah. Looking at today's circuit, I think a couple of people on Twitter pointing out as well that from the back of the pack, you could see on the kind of the gantry over the start-finish straight, it was all green flags, go, go, go. And I wonder whether that confused them a little bit at the back. To be honest, I don't really know enough about it because the reason they brought it in the first place, like you mentioned, was because of incidents at Baku. And that was, especially when that happened in F2 a couple of years ago, that was equally horrific, if not worse, than today's incident. But yeah, it's not something that happens very often. But if there is going to be big incidents like this, it's definitely worth revisiting.
Yeah, I agree. It's worth a look. I don't know if they will do anything, but yeah. And then the other big incident, because that brought out an understandable red flag. Then we got a second red flag. I can't remember ever. Just trying to think, 2 red flags in a race. It's been a long time since I can ever remember that happening in Formula One. There'll be somebody in chat now that will go, actually, it was such and such. And I'll be like, yes, it was. Because there's always one that knows, and they always get me, so it's good. But that second red flag for Lance's crash, again, most important thing, he was okay, because that was a nasty shunt, but it looks like a puncture, is what Racing Point are saying. They're still going to investigate a bit further. Some people talk about things flicking off the front of the car, but he kind of comes in, puncture, back end gets away, and he just smashes into the wall. And again, later in the stream of the slideshow, as images go around, you'll see the damage that did. Absolutely destroyed his car. Brazil 2016. Yes, thank you. I love you lot. Some saying 2017 Singapore. I'll go and check it out, but there has been some. But yeah, a massive accident, huge damage to that car. And it was a shame for Lance Stroll because he was going really well to that point, wasn't he? And I thought he was an outsider for a podium today. I think he would have been in a good scrap with Ricciardo and Albon for that final podium spot. But a horrible accident for him, and it rightly brought out the red flag, I assume, just because it was taking so long to move the cars. But the problem, I said this on the qualifying watch along yesterday, there was always a risk of a red flag. At least one at Mugello because it's a bike track. Formula One have kind of turned up and gone, can we use your track, please? Everything's going to, in the world, so can we use your track? They've said yes, and they can't really get all the infrastructure in place. It's not like a Monaco where there's a crane at pretty much every corner, or it feels like that, or a Silverstone where your marshals have got all these posts and everything ready to go for Formula One. So I think they did the best job they could, the marshals, but I was expecting, if an accident was big enough or it was going to take a long time to clear a car, I fully expected a red flag today, but I never expected to, mate. Not going to lie. But what did you think of Mugello before we get onto the top 3? Do you fancy going back again, Dan? Or do you think it was just the crashing that made this race a bit more entertaining, if you like? Obviously, we're glad the drivers are okay, but you're right, it's entertaining.
I really quite enjoyed it, actually. I've seen quite a few people moaning, but I thought it was a real breath of fresh air. It's obviously not one of the greatest tracks in the world. I think you can probably count on one hand the amount of overtaking opportunities there are, turn one being by far the most popular. And without DRS, we probably wouldn't have seen anything. But I enjoyed it yesterday in qualifying. I thought it was really, really fun to watch. And in the junior formulas, that was great as well. So if when we get to 2022, we do have cars that can be much, much closer, wheel-to-wheel racing, much closer in straight line speed in performance, then I think this is certainly a circuit that should be looked at. It wasn't horrific. We get races like Monaco, Hungary, Sochi, we don't need to mention, where we see that, don't worry, that's not for a little while on the calendar. But we don't see any overtaking there. And at least we did see a few little bits and bobs here and there today. And that turn one up the hill and into turn two, we saw some great little scraps. So it's not in my top 10 probably circuits I'd love to go to, but I certainly enjoyed it. And I thought it would probably be a bit of a snooze fest, and it certainly wasn't that.
I think to anybody who's excited at the prospect of it staying, I wouldn't get too excited. I think I get the impression, for next year, we'll get a more conventional calendar with the tracks that we're used to seeing over recent years. But if places like Portimao put on a show in Turkey and places like that, then maybe they'll come back. But I think Imola, Tuscany, Imola and Mugello for me are probably tracks that are on there just because of what's going on this year. I think next year it'll be they'll be saying thanks for everything, guys, but we're off. But there is a chance that we'll see the Nürburgring back. They're probably in talks with Hockenheim, apparently, or reportedly in talks with Hockenheim about sharing the German Grand Prix again. I think if Turkey can put on a show, they could come back. Tracks like that might, but I don't expect to see Mugello back on. But it was entertaining. But it was entertaining for the accidents. I said this at the start. It was a really bizarre race and kind of a roller coaster of emotions, because we had all that drama at the start that we were just talking about. But then we kind of went into the Mercedes show, didn't we? They were like, right then, this is what we can do. Take your party mode ban or whatever you want to call it and stick it up your backside. This is the pace we've got in the car. Off we go. And they just disappeared up front. And of course, the racing was okay behind. We saw some good overtaking, but it very much settled into a modern day conventional Formula One race where we're just talking about, will they put some different tyres on Bottas's car? And as it turns out, they didn't, even though he was asking for it. But that's how it felt for me. Kind of massively exciting start, dropped off a little bit, and then massively dramatic and exciting end. But that's kind of the case with most Formula One races, to be fair. But take nothing away from Mercedes today. They were pretty dominant. There was a point where I thought Alex Albon might be able to get Bottas, but then Bottas seemed to pick up the pace. So whether he was just managing things a little bit, I don't know. That would have been quite a story, wouldn't it? But what did you think of Lewis Hamilton today? It was him and Bottas both said it was like having 3 races in one day, which I suppose it was, technically, with 3 standing starts and a safety car start. But do you think he looked knackered afterwards, didn't he? He looked like he'd really been through the ringer with that Grand Prix, and he had to work for it. It wasn't like we saw prior to all the chaos in Monza where he just disappeared and could look after things. Bottas was there or thereabouts all race and was pushing for a different strategy. So pretty decent drive from Lewis again today. Again, what can you say?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There was that, I don't know if you want to call it a mistake, but the initial start at the Grand Prix where he lost out to Bottas, that was a massive surprise. I can't remember the last time Lewis Hamilton almost got swallowed by the pack. And I mean, he was unlucky, really. Well, Max Verstappen was unlucky not to stay in the race because he had a great little start before that engine or power unit issue. And I really do believe he would have had a great chance, not potentially at a victory, but certainly taking the fight to the Mercedes if all that carnage had happened without Max. But yeah, it was, I don't want to say a bog standard race for Mercedes because it certainly wasn't that for anybody today. No. But controlling the pace was a little bit cheeky with Valtteri. And it was great to see Valtteri really fired up and passionate. Look, I want to go on a strategy opposite to Lewis. Just let me try something different. Hamilton just almost said, nope, you're not doing that. I'm also going on the hard tyres. Thank you very much. And that was a little bit disappointed. It would have been nice to see that strategic element come into play. We were potentially looking at a 2-stop, which could have been really fun. I know they ended up on 5 or 6 stops in the end, but we never really quite saw that strategic element come into today's race. So for Hamilton, I think it was relatively easy. And you mentioned there with Albon closing into Bottas at the end, I think even then, I think Valtteri was just trying to play those mind games with Lewis, go for that fastest lap, maybe close in at the end, but relatively straightforward. Never really looked threatened today, did Hamilton. And when you consider Valtteri's pace building up to qualifying and all the way through the weekend, I thought he would have been much, much closer. But for whatever reason, Valtteri just, whether he seems to be lacking that bit of killer instinct at the end, I'm not really too sure. But on a day where I thought this would be a great opportunity for Valtteri, Hamilton just that next level.
See, I wouldn't say it was easy for Hamilton. Maybe Bottas wasn't quite there to get anywhere near him today properly and threaten him. But with everything going on, I think we said it with him before. We said it with Gasly, the pressure that he was under. If you look at some of these races that we see where you get lots of safety cars or red flags and all those variables thrown in, I think they're often really, really good drives from the winner because they've got so much pressure. I think going a long way back now to Canada 2007 and his first ever win and all that pressure he soaked up then with all the chaos going on around him. And I always really rate those drives from any driver because it can't be easy to keep your head when you're getting in and out of the car with multiple red flags and following a safety car and accidents all over the place and your teammate trying to get another strategy. But I think that was a solid drive, a very good drive. But on that strategy from Bottas, I was disappointed. I thought we were going to see Bottas go for it, but I think the problem is that Mercedes won't have wanted to do that. They would want their drivers on the same strategy. They don't like doing that. Somebody will argue, I'm sure, but they don't really like to put their drivers on separate strategies. They just want the 1-2. Bottas, and I'm probably reading way too much into this, Bottas for me kind of made a mistake on team radio by saying he had vibrations. Now, obviously, if he's concerned about his car, he's got to say that. But by saying that, Mercedes had a get out of jail free card, because they could then turn around and say, well, we'll pit you, Valtteri, and put you on the hard tyres, and then they could put Lewis on the same tyre. I don't think there was any major team play there, because I don't think the team were favouring Hamilton. I think the situation was just that Bottas pitted first for safety reasons, and so Hamilton isn't going to turn around and say, I'd like the hard tyres, and then them say, no, Bottas got the hard tyres, sorry, he wants you to go opposite. Hamilton's not going to turn around and go, all right, I'll take the softs then. Why not? Sorry, I didn't realise all the hards were used up, guys. I apologise. He was never going to do that, so I don't think there's anything there. Had Hamilton pitted first, Mercedes would have had a big decision to make. And I think that's why Bottas isn't quite so stroppy about it post-race. I think he knows that by pitting first, that opportunity to go on the opposite strategy is taken away from him, isn't it? But he got his wish of a safety car. It's just unfortunate that turned into a red flag for him, but it's the second start, didn't it? Or the third start, cost him because he fell behind Daniel Ricciardo. If he gets that right, he can just follow Hamilton in the slipstream all the way down to turn one, round the outside, and off he goes into the lead, and we've got a great fight up front.
Yeah, it wasn't as if there wasn't opportunities for Bottas today, because that initial start, right at the beginning, he was great. And at that stage, I generally thought he was going to be able to just control this from the front, go off and finally win that second race of the season. But you're right. I think it was that third and final restart where not only did he not match Hamilton, but he dropped behind Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Just that little too long behind him, stuck in the dirty air, and the gap was just too much then. Couldn't quite get back into DRS. And I think even with DRS, I don't think there was ever really going to be a mega challenge from Valtteri. But at least it's P2. It's only the third time this year we've got a Mercedes 1-2. So maybe that's something to take away for the team. For Valtteri, he hasn't lost out massively to Hamilton, but I'm not quite sure what the gap is now, but it's starting to get a little bit unreachable.
50, so it's 47, wasn't it? So it'd be 55 with the fastest lap. 8 points. So quick maths, whatever. Yep. quick maths, whatever. Can I calculate it? No, it'll be something around there. I didn't do the maths before because I didn't want to, but my brain hurts after all of that. There's no way I was trying maths even with a calculator. Yeah, I think that the time behind Ricciardo cost him. There was a point where I thought Bottas was going to close up, and in the sort of last couple of laps he was getting the gap down. I thought, oh, here we go, we're going to get a final one-lap shootout for the victory, and then Hamilton was like, and fastest lap, and everybody just went, oh, we just quite fancy a fight between the Mercedes for the win. But yeah, it was a start that cost Bottas, but which is frustrating for him because his first start was spot on. That first start, down to turn one, into the lead, and you thought, here we go. And I tweeted, and I'm sorry, Valtteri Bottas fans, but I tweeted, as soon as Verstappen was in the gravel, Bottas was leading, this is your chance, Bottas. This is your chance. Albon, you've got to deliver now. You're Bottas ahead of his teammate. You need this win. Verstappen's out of the race. Come on, Albon, let's get it. And it all kind of fell apart for Bottas from there, even though, like you say, falling apart for Bottas is still P2. Which is quite incredible. That is the dominance of Mercedes. A bad race for Hamilton or Bottas is P2. I mean, that's utter madness. But no great surprise to see them dominate this weekend, really, was the damn. With the pace in that car, the nature of the track, the fact they are just the dominant force in Formula One. I just hope that people don't look at that result on a BBC website, for example, and go, oh, another Mercedes 1-2, and don't watch the highlights. Please watch the highlights. That top three does not tell you anything near half the story of that race.
Yeah, and I was thinking, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because if we had seen, say, a Ricciardo P2 or on the podium, I wonder if people's, overall feeling about the Grand Prix would be a little bit different. But you're right, it was a much better Grand Prix than I think it looks on paper. And to be fair to Mercedes, though, you're right, they were clearly the best team today, like they've been all season long, and this is the kind of circuit that plays to their strengths. They were lucky that Max Verstappen was out of the Grand Prix. I really did think he was going to have a great chance, and it wasn't all their own way. I mean, Valtteri, I can't quite remember what lap. It was so early on, which seems so long ago, but they were saying after that first stop that there was something wrong with the tyres, and I did just wonder if we'd see something like that second Silverstone race. Or the first one, wasn't it? Where all the tyres exploded. And I wondered if that would come into play again because Mugello is so hard on the tyres. But yeah, end of the day, it was nice for Mercedes, but it wasn't their easiest win, I'd say, of the season.
Well, yeah, I mean, on the tyres, like you say, they're being told to stay off the curbs. And then obviously Stroll's tyre potentially exploding is what it looks like. So that's another good point. As well as the strategy intrigue between Bottas, there was also the concerns over the state of their tyres. But what's helped everybody out today with tyre life, except for poor Lance Stroll, obviously, bless him, is the red flags, because you can just change pretty much what you want, can't you, in a red flag situation. We'll not get back into that conversation. We did that last week over whether or not that rule should stand or not. I think it's absolutely fine because you're out of part firme, so do as you like, really. But yeah, Alex Albon, let's roll on to him. I'm so conflicted, and I don't want to be. When he crossed the line third, I was beaming from ear to ear. I was so pleased because I did that video on Wednesday about whether maybe Gasly should get that second chance. And I really said, I want Albon to do well. I know I criticise him when he's not doing well, but I do that for any driver. I want him to do well. It was the same with Gasly at Red Bull last year. I want him up there. I want him to prove everybody wrong. And I said he needed to get his qualifying sorted. He qualified 4th yesterday, so he did that part. Yes, he fell back into the field at a couple of the starts, but he's managed to get himself into 3rd place. Yes, again, luck. That's something I want to talk about later, is luck and the excuse that people use for people that get good results. It really annoys me. But yes, luck's played its part, but it's a very well-earned podium. He's overtaken several cars to get there, and it's a result that he really needed. And I think he drove very, very well today. And even had Max Verstappen finished, I still think he would have probably ended up 4th place, which is where he started, which is where he needs to be. That is exactly where Alex Albon needs to be, just behind Max Verstappen. Not even that close, just behind him in the results. That's absolutely fine. And then pick up the pieces when he's not there, which he's done today. I will say, I think if Verstappen was 3rd today, he probably would have got Bottas or would have been closer to him. But that doesn't matter. First podium for Alex Albon. The perfect way to respond to all the talk of Pierre Gasly after Monza. And hopefully, Dan, he can kick on from here and get on a good run of form and just shut everybody up so he can concentrate on the rest of this season and on 2021. But the reason I'm conflicted is because I really, really, really wanted Danny Ric to take that opportunity, because he's not going to get that opportunity every weekend, is he? So I was hoping he'd get it for Renault and we'd get to see this tattoo of Cyril Abiteboul's, and then Sky will stop ruddy well talking about it.
See, it's Sky jinxing it. They don't shut up about this tattoo, so he's never going to get it. But you're right. That was a big, big result today for Alex Albon. I think he just needed that bit of confidence booster as well. Yesterday, finally getting top 4 in qualifying. He's not done that all season long, and that's a huge monkey off his back for starters. And to be honest, in the race, though once Max crashed out on lap 1, he kind of made it difficult for himself. You'd think, looking at Red Bull's pace yesterday over practice, they're clearly the second best car. Surely with Max out, that should be a straightforward Alex podium. But on that restart, went flying down the order, past Stroll, past Ricciardo, and really had to get his elbows out. And yeah, he certainly made it difficult for himself and wasn't the easiest route to a podium. But I think for him, it's nice that he kind of did have to work for it. It wasn't just a boring bog standard, Max is out, I'm going to slowly just stay behind the Mercedes, stay in front of the midfield. He did have to make some great overtakes, made a lovely move on Perez and Ricciardo around the outside of that turn 1 complex. So to come away with a result like that, like you mentioned, after that crazy weekend for Gasly, is exactly what he needed. I think he's 5th now, Albon, in the standings, which again is moving up a couple of positions, finally getting that little bit of consistency he's been lacking. And like you, I kind of hope that really just spurs him on now. We're not expecting him to be right there with Max Verstappen, winning Grand Prix from here on out. But finally, he's just got that podium under his belt. I think there's now 9 drivers in the season, which is awesome. People say Formula One's predictable. Definitely not this year in that midfield. And like you, it would have been great to see the Shoey King up on the podium. Even when Alex came on the radio after the Grand Prix, he sounded quite, lackluster.
That he doesn't sound bothered, does he?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah. Whereas, Daniel Ricciardo would have been screaming, would have been so excited. But I think for Albon, rather than, obviously he would have been so happy, but I think it was just that bit of relief. He's been so close on so many occasions, and he's probably just thankful he was nowhere near Lewis Hamilton today. But it was a great job.
Sorry, Mercedes fans, I'm not going to lie. I look at 3rd place Albon, 4th place Ricciardo, 5th place Perez. I was watching the timing screens and going, oh, go on, Bottas. Get alongside and take each other out, because what a podium that would be. Albon getting the win, which would just take the massive pressure off him, beaming Ricciardo up there doing the shoey, and Perez, the week he's dropped, gets himself a podium. That would just be like the perfect way to round off the week, but it didn't happen. I'm kind of glad it didn't, because obviously we want to see a championship fight between these two. But yeah, I think great result from Alex Albon. I just want to know, Jay Paul, is Jay Paul happy now in chat? Because we've said nice things about Alex Albon this week. He's been getting at me the last 2 weeks on streams going, stop being horrible, leave him alone. I said I'd leave him alone if he stepped it up. There he is, third place. Again, yes, look involved, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. Danny Rick, fourth place. That move to McLaren, which looked like a shoe-in, it looked like the right thing to do, suddenly started to wonder if maybe you're better staying at Renault. But then, if I'm being honest, I don't really want Daniel Ricciardo near a team with the name Peen. You're just asking for trouble there, right? You've got Ricciardo or someone like Lando Norris in there with a name like that. But really good drive, as we've said. A little bit disappointing because he got that great start, didn't he, on the 100th race start or whatever it was in that Grand Prix. Got a great start to get ahead of Bottas, and I just thought, go on, go and win this, Danny Rick, and go for it. And obviously the pace wasn't there in the end. Bottas was always going to get him, and then Albon was on it in that third stint of the race. So, but I think deserved a podium today, but the problem is I think so did Albon. I don't think you could take that away from him. So I just would have loved to have seen Danny Rick up there, because it'd be kind of the nice way as well, wouldn't it, to leave? There's been a lot of talk about, did it work out with Renault? You'd probably say no. What's going on behind the scenes? So to leave with a podium would be kind of the nice way to round it all off. So if he can get one before the end of the season, I'd be so happy for him. But he drove very, very well today. So did Alex Albon. So did Sergio Perez. He's a driver that could easily now go, well, screw you lot, but he's got to fight for his career, hasn't he? So he's going to deliver. But I really so impressed with Albon, Ricciardo and Perez today, because the reason I say Perez is because we hardly saw an awful lot of him. He got a few side-by-sides, he did what he needed to do, but he stayed out of trouble, which was kind of, I think that was the key in the midfield this race, wasn't it? It was just to keep yourself out of trouble and get to the finish.
Yeah, proper drive to survive today. Goodness me. I like you say, Ricciardo was great today. It's so punchy at the beginning. It's what we love to see from Danny Rick. And I think without that final red flag, I think he would have got the job done. But on the fresh rubber, that Red Bull of Albon, just a little bit too much to handle. Fourth place, though, I think second or third time in 2020. He's been super consistent this year. That midfield, we know every weekend it's changing who's first, who's last. This weekend didn't really seem to be Renault after qualifying, but Ricciardo made the most of it. Kind of lucky that Stroll had his incident. That was that driver out of the way, I guess. But really good drive from Danny Rick. And you mentioned Checo. I'd say Sergio, Lando and Danny Kvyat, I don't think we saw them all Grand Prix. All of them just staying out of trouble, really consistent, not making mistakes, all of them picking up big points. And like you say, what a week it's been for Sergio. What a terrible week. And even in terms of the race, it was Stroll who's got the upgrades. So not only is he told he's been kicked out, he's also been told he's got the worst car. Bless him, a little bit halfway through the Grand Prix, part of his car went flying off as well. So in all fairness, bringing it home to P5, I think Sky were throwing around the statistic that he scored in every single race he started this year, proving his consistency. And like you say, fighting for his career. But I think once again, just proving just how good he is, and that we don't want to lose him in Formula One. He is a good enough talent. And again, unlucky not to get the podium, really. If he did have those upgrades, I'm sure he would have been right there in that fight.
Yeah, and of course, Stroll binned it with the upgrades. They've got to remake them. Yeah, what a terrible situation. No, I mean, that's helped him out as well in the drivers. There's been a few people talking about, he's lost it because he finished 10th at 2 races. Don't get me started. I mean, what the hell is that about, seriously? Sergio Perez, consistent for years. 10th place in 2 races. Lance Stroll's done better despite the fact that Checo had to sit out 2 races with COVID. Perez is trash. What are you even talking about? Stop it. That's not true at all. But great way, 10 points as well. Is that 10 points? Yeah, for 5th place. So a nice way to kind of climb the table a little bit and start to hopefully you can kick on from here. As well, a bit like Albon. Let's go from here now, Checo. Get some consistency back. Not that 2 10th place finishes isn't consistent. That is the definition of consistent because it's the same result twice. But anyway. Come on, Sean, wake up. It was crazy, that race. I tell you, I'm all over the place with it. I can't quite get my head around it. Really, and Lando Norris was a weird one today as well, by the way. 6th place. Didn't see a huge amount of him either, but he was no man's land Can we go with that? I think for Lando Norris, he was nowhere near, well, not nowhere near Perez. He was well off Perez, but he was also well ahead of Kvyat in 7th place. So, again, one of those drives where he had to stay out of trouble. So he did stay out of trouble, and he's got himself a 6th place, which is a very nice result at a track where McLaren have been surprisingly disappointing, I'd say, Dan. I thought they have a lot more pace. I did not expect Renault to be ahead of them this weekend, and McLaren kind of falling into the middle of that midfield. But that's just the nature of this season, is it's ebbing and flowing so much. One week it's Renault on top, the next it's Racing Point, another week it's McLaren, one day it'll be Ferrari or something like that. It's chaos this season. I'm loving it. But yeah, good race from Lando, and Kvyat as well in 7th. I'm trying to think if I can remember much of Kvyat. I went looking for pictures afterwards and found one, so probably not.
Yeah, I think Lando, he had a disappointing qualifying, didn't he? First time not in Q3, P11. And I wonder if Lando and Kvyat starting 11th and 12th, I wonder if they were kind of hoping for just a normal race, starting on that alternate strategy, maybe hoping they could go a little bit longer into the race. But obviously that certainly didn't happen, certainly wasn't a normal race. And we've said it a few times, just I think the key for today was just staying out of trouble, staying out of the wars, staying in between those two lines, not going onto the gravel. We didn't see a lot of them, so they may have made a few mistakes. We just generally never saw them, like you say, not quite close enough to Perez, nice enough in front of those back 3 teams and Ferrari as well. A quiet race, but big points for Lando. And actually, for Danny Kvyat, who'd scored 4 points, I think it was, going into this weekend. Yeah. That's a big, big result for him. He's a driver who's, I wouldn't say been struggling this year, but certainly been in the shadow of his teammate and not quite the level of Albon. But I think that's a nice bit of a confidence boost for Danny this weekend. Again, nothing too crazy, but that's a nice haul of points for him.
Yeah. I think this is going to be the problem going through the order now, or certainly through that part anyway, is they've just kept themselves out of trouble. That's not saying they had a boring race and didn't really do anything. That's, staying out of trouble in that race was quite an achievement, quite frankly. There was enough going on. So I think really good races from both of those. And I think, actually, do you know what? Yeah, Kvyat, Perez, Albon, it's a great opportunity now for them to go away for a week and have a nice little break, which I'm going to be doing this week. I need it after that race. Going away and having a nice little break and then coming back for Russia and just kicking on from there and going into these final 8 races with some confidence behind them. Perez is looking for a drive somewhere. Kvyat possibly fighting for his seat as well. I've got a feeling they might stick with their 2 drivers for next year. I don't know why, I just have, but possibly fighting for his seat as well. Alexander Albon is going to want to start delivering a bit more consistently during the races too and be a bit closer to Verstappen. That's a chance for him. It just feels like a good opportunity for those 3 drivers to just kick on. I love saying kick on from here. Can you tell? I just really love that saying, but that's just how I feel about that. And I kind of almost like Kimi Raikkonen in 9th. I don't think he'd been anywhere near the points today without all the chaos, but a chance with a couple of points on the board now to maybe just start moving his season on and maybe, if he is retiring, finish on a flourish or finish with a flourish rather than shouting at his engineers. Wow. 1.4 million tweets that got, apparently. It was trending on Twitter because he shouted, "For what?" Love him. Gonna miss him so much if he retires, Dad. I'm sorry, but I am. But anyway, yes, back to the point. I'll let you speak now. I've got Gideon Weird.
No, I agree with everything you just said there. That's a big weekend for several of those guys. And I think even drivers that, because we're at the halfway point now, I think there's a few drivers today, Ocon's the one that springs to mind, that maybe haven't had a stellar first half to the year. And this kind of is that halfway point. We can go away. Nothing he could have done today about retiring from that Grand Prix. Kind of have a bit of a reset, knowing he's got a strong car under him. And for the likes of Kvyat, strong points. Even, bless him, Sebastian Vettel scoring a point. That's the first time since Spain. He's been, I think we all know, just a world of trouble at the moment. So for a lot of those guys today, just maybe having a quiet race with everything going on, that's going to be huge for them in terms of confidence and going into the rest of the season.
Charlotte Taylor just dropping into chat with a hell of a stat there, which I think is right. I'm just double checking, but Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, what have we had? 8 races, 9 races, have more points already than they had last year for the whole of the season.
Wow.
I'm just checking that. I believe you, Charlotte, honest, but I like to just double check these things because somebody will correct me. But let's just have a scroll through. So last year, remember these numbers, Dan, for God's sake, get a pen. Last year, Danny Rick scored 54 and Lando Norris scored 43 or 49. 49. Danny Rick has now scored for this season 53, so he's the same. And Lando Norris 65. So Danny Rick has matched what he's done last season already. That is quite a stat.
That is very impressive. Yeah. I mean, it helps with, a certain team not doing so well this year at the front. But yeah, that's still very impressive.
Ricciardo 1 point off what he had for the whole of last season, but still, I mean, come on. I know a lot of that, like you were going to say, Dad, is about Ferrari, but still, that's a hell of a stat. Thank you, Charlotte, for pointing that one out. I like that one. So Lando Norris more points than he had through the whole of last season, and Daniel Ricciardo is almost at that tally, one away. So, yeah, I think, like you say there, Dan, a bit more about Ferrari possibly, and a step up from both the teams, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Renault, the last 4 or 5 Grand Prix, they had a difficult start to the season, but slowly and surely it's been getting better and better. And to be fair to them, reliability was something they've been really shocking at the last couple of years, and even that's coming true. So Renault and McLaren, big step ups this year.
On the subject of Ferrari, 8th place, 5th in quali for Charles Leclerc. I still find it weird saying this. Actually a pretty good weekend for Ferrari, all things considered. 8th place and, like I say, 5th in quali. Charles Leclerc, nice and racy, wanted to go with an ambitious strategy, or a different strategy at least, and getting some overtaking done. Okay, 8th place today is still 5th from last, but it's some points on the board, and that's kind of what Ferrari have been lacking of late. So actually not a bad result. And Vettel getting 10th as well. So yeah, Vettel got caught up in that first corner incident, though, as I recall, didn't he? Lost a bit of his front wing.
Yeah, I think he hit the back of Sainz, didn't he? When Sainz was doing his version of Spinella. Yeah, you're right. It is very strange to say. And with all the pretty awesome celebrations with Ferrari this weekend, it's disappointing that they've come away with 5 points, that Seb is 10th, and that's his 200th points finish in his career, and there's all these great statistics, but 8th and 10th, that's not where they want to be. But they're realistic about it. They know the car isn't great. They know it's going to be very, very similar next year. But it's nice to see Seb trying his best in that awful car, trying to make some overtakes in the back of that pack, fending off George Russell in his special way. And even Charles Leclerc, great yesterday in quali, and at the very beginning, this seems like a million years ago, getting up to 3rd. I certainly didn't expect that, and trying to be, like you say, as racy as possible, but obviously it was never really going to happen. That Ferrari seemed to be pretty awful on its tyres today. You said going for a bit of a bold strategy. They still weren't quite sure on the team radio, a bit of a theme going through this year. They weren't 1,000,000% sure what they were going to do, but it was just one of those races where strategy in the end just went straight out of the window. And it's bizarre in one of these crazy races where the majority of drivers almost don't finish. It's nice for Ferrari, at least. They can get 2 cars to the checkered flag, scoring points. And slowly but surely, it's slowly building up their championship score, but falling into the clutches of AlphaTauri last weekend, moving slightly further away. But looking at it now, I don't think they're going to be able to catch the likes of Renault or McLaren. No. And surely that means they're out of the top 5, which is really surprising.
I actually, this will be awful for Ferrari fans to hear, I'm sure, but I actually think AlphaTauri are more likely to finish ahead of Ferrari than Ferrari are to get anywhere near those ahead of them, to be honest. And I've got to point out as well, we know what the issue is, but 4 of the final 5 places were occupied by Ferrari-powered cars: Leclerc, Raikkonen, Vettel and Grosjean. The only one who wasn't Ferrari-powered was George Russell, and had that red flag not really messed him up in that poor start because of that red flag, the red flag restart, he probably would have been at least ahead of Raikkonen, I would say, in 9th place today. So Ferrari really are in an absolute mess. It was their 1,000th Grand Prix. It's okay, they had a great show though. If you caught that was fantastic. What a show. Lots of acrobatics and music, and that was wonderful, but the racing still not working out for them. And it kind of sums up their season that we have a race where only 12 cars finish. It's utter chaos, and they're still 8th and 10th, and we're calling that an okay result. They're in a right mess. But I do like the fact they're realistic, by the way. I like the fact they're not saying, oh no, we'll sort it by next weekend, we're back on the pace. At least they're saying, look, this is going to take us a year and a half to really sort out. So stick with us. At least they're being realistic, and they've got to focus on 22. But 1000th Grand Prix weekend, lots of celebrations, some points on the board, not awful. And actually, Sebastian Vettel, with Kimi's penalty, only 2 tenths behind him in the end. So without that incident on the first lap, he's probably finishing 9th. So there you go, at least 9th. It's little things for Ferrari at the moment. But George Russell, 11th place, Dan. Are you gutted like me? I know he's made the mistake at the start by not making up the place and falling backwards. I get all of that, but still, he's in probably, I'd say, still the slowest car on the grid, and he was just on the brink of points. It strikes me that he's one of those drivers that's never going to score points in that Williams. That's just how it feels at the minute. Kvyat has done it. Latifi has nearly done it, sorry. And Russell, it just doesn't feel like it's ever going to happen, does it? It was so close.
Yeah, if I'm being totally honest, it was very much mixed feelings for me, because on that final restart when George was P9, I think it was P10, it was Grosjean who had a great restart, and he was in the points. I was thinking, finally, a bit of luck. But Grosjean's car, I mean, his race, we'll talk about that in a bit, I'm sure. But Russell, yeah, he was so close. And when he was able to get past Grosjean, I did think, oh, maybe he's going to have the pace to close into Seb. Seb was making a few little mistakes. There was that little graphic on the side, the gap to Raikkonen. And you're thinking, finally, surely he's going to be able to close in, but made that little bit of a mistake. Didn't quite catch it, but I think he went either a little bit wide or slightly into the gravel, potentially. I think Martin Brundle picked up on it and never could quite recover. And I think whilst the fight at the front at the end was not really emerging to anything, everyone was looking at George Russell thinking, come on, this first weekend after a big change for the team, surely they could just snatch a point. And ultimately, I think he's just 2 seconds away, which is going to hurt him so much. But we all know his talent. I don't think not scoring today is going to make anyone think, well, he's not good enough. He's never going to do it. I think people are aware. George Russell, like you say, is inarguably the worst car in the field. And he was fighting the Ferrari for the final point. He was fighting a 4-time world champion. So that in itself is quite special to be there for Ferrari's 1000th weekend. But yeah, he'll definitely be kicking himself on that restart when up to that point, he was doing a really good race.
Yeah, I just feel for him. I do. I know he didn't capitalise on that position, but it was nice to see a nice racy Williams, and he had the opportunity and it just wasn't there. So I'm just really annoyed. I was egging him on. I was hoping for a Lando Norris style final lap like we saw in Austria, and he'd end up in P8 or P9 or something, and it just never seemed to really work for him. So gutted for him, but you can't deny the opportunity was there, and he needs to snatch those opportunities. Robert Kubica snatched it when it came his way. That's one for the Kubica fans. That gets me out of trouble this week. So yeah, I think they're not going to come around that often, are they? These chances for him. So he's got to. I'm not going to say anymore. I'm just gutted for him because I think he's in a Williams and he's cutting his teeth, learning his trade, whatever cliche you want to use, but I still think he's much better than a back of the grid car, and it would just be nice to have seen him get that point so he could kick on and have an epic second half to the season as well. But yeah, there you go. I'm going to shove back George. Kimi Raikkonen, P9 penalty, cutting the pit lane entry. I don't think there's much argument there. I don't think there's anybody out there who's going to turn around and go, oh, not a penalty for me. That's a penalty. It's in the rules. Do you disagree, Dan? You can if you want. Go for it, and we'll have an argument. Let's do it.
I'm all right, thanks. I'll save that for another day.
That's all right then. I was worried then you were going to go, well, actually, I don't think it should have been. But yeah, actually pretty good from Kimi as well, capitalising on everything going on around him. Stayed out of trouble, but he didn't, did he? He was involved in just about everything out there, and he still kept going. So I probably should be more surprised that he finished than Grosjean. So Kimi being Kimi, I guess. I've not said that for a while, but I'm glad he's got a couple of points. And I'm so pleased for that team outburst, because it's kind of like this decade's leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. And I love that. So he's going out with a bang, isn't he? He was so angry. And his poor engineer is probably like, all right, calm down. I was just letting you know what was going on. A couple of people asking about why it was a penalty for Kimi. He's coming out the final corner, heading down the pit straight, safety car board flashes up, and he cuts across the pit entry. So he wasn't to the left of what should be the bollard, although I don't think the bollard was there, and he's cut across the white lines. That's slam dunk all day long. That's what they were pit lane speeding and most jump starts. That's always going to be a penalty. So that's why Kimi got that one. 5-second tyre penalty dropped him to 9th. Romain Grosjean. Dan, are you impressed with your man today?
I am. I think that was his best drive of the season. Not because it was anywhere near points at the end of the day, but just the fact he kept going. You're right. He was in the barriers at the end of the first incident, right at the beginning, with quite a hit as well. He hit that barrier, and I was thinking, oh no. He's only DNF'd once this season, which I think is a record for Grosjean at this point. He's on a great little streak of non-DNFs. I thought, great qualifying yesterday, and it's all gone in the bin. But gets it going again, back to the pits with the front wing damage. Then we all saw that incident on the restart, that horrible onboard of everyone piling up in front of him. Somehow escaped that contact with Raikkonen into turn 1 halfway through the Grand Prix. Everything seemed to go on. On the red flag, they showed his floor, and it looked like kind of like a shark or something had taken a big bite out of it. It was a bit of a mess. That car wasn't great this weekend anyway. So the fact that he almost scored some points, I was very proud of. But after Russell's P11, I think he's now dead last in the driver's standings, bless him. But I think that was one of his best weekends of the season.
There you go. That's the Grosjean 5 minutes sorted. Just leave it to Dan. Danny in chat says, that's not an argument, Sean. There needs to be a reason. Is it dangerous? I don't think so. That rule will be in place because something will have happened at some point and it was dangerous, or the stewards deem that could, the incident with Kimi, could result in a dangerous situation. That is the pits where you've got people, where you've got lots of, basically pit crew everywhere, marshals down there. They can't risk it. The rule is there because something's happened in the past. I can't tell you what it is off the top of my head. The rule is there to keep people safe. So you may not think that Kimi's move into the pits this time was dangerous, but if you let that go and he does it next week or the week after and he hits somebody, do you let that one go as well? So the rule is there, quite simply, as a black and white rule. If you do that, it's like rejoining... Is it the first couple of corners at Spain, where you've got to return to the left of the bollard? The rule is there for safety reasons to avoid there being a massively dangerous incident. So return to the left of the bollard or come into the pits via these lines. You've got to be between these lines. Otherwise, it's a penalty. And Kimi Raikkonen didn't argue with it, which is odd. Well, I think he knows. He knows that rule, doesn't he? And he knows that was a penalty all day long. So it may not have looked unsafe, but it's there for safety reasons. So that's the point I'm making on Kimi. But Grosjean, good race. Who have we got in that? We talked about all these at the start, didn't we? Carlos Sainz, as far as I understand, is absolutely fine. I'll check in a minute regarding... I'll go to McLaren and check and just that everything's okay. But he was holding his hand after. It's a nasty accident for Carlos Sainz and a number of others around. But really... there's not an awful lot to say about most of those. Ocon was going okay. Cyril Abiteboul thinks that he would have been up there with Danny Rick had he not had the brake issue. Lance Stroll, I thought, was driving very well as well today prior to his crash. I think he would have been in that fight for the podium, as I said earlier. Nicholas Latifi, he was all right out there. K-Mag. Did we see much of K-Mag, Dan? Your man's teammate, as I'm going to start calling him.
Yeah, not really. And what I would say is he's DNF'd more than he's finished Grand Prix this season. He's had 5 DNFs, 4 finishes. So he's on a bit of a bad streak at the moment. So, yeah, no, not a lot from K-Mag today.
No. It's odd. Yeah, it's an odd season for him. As I was just sorting something out in chat there, Dan. I was listening to you, mate. Gio... really difficult because the thing is, it was such a... If you haven't seen it, please go watch it because it's so weird. Because we had, was it 8 laps in total behind a safety car? And everyone's going, we're 8 laps into this race. But the reality was, before the red flag, we'd had 1-2 corners of racing or something like that in the first hour or whatever it was. It was absolutely mental because they got through turn 1, then it all happened at turn 2. Safety car came out, then the restart, the crash on the main start finish straight, red flag came out, and it was kind of like, well, it was like, I kind of almost wish they'd red flagged it after the first incident and just started again. I feel like that was the right thing to do at that point. Just let's not do this. But it was such a weird start, and it felt like by about lap 12, it felt like it was coming towards the end of the race, and you look at it and you're like, Christ, we've still got 40 odd laps to go. Absolute madness. So it's difficult to say who was going well when you look at Verstappen and Gasly and then Sainz and Giovinazzi and Magnussen and co, because what did they have to do? I mean, they didn't do anything. They just ploughed into the back of each other on the start-finish straight, or were involved in the turn 2 incident, unless you can remember something specific about Latifi, Magnussen, Giovinazzi, Sainz, Verstappen and Gasly. Dan, some epic move they pulled off in the 200 yards they raced. Let me know.
Nothing's coming to mind, funnily enough.
Weird that.
I'm sure we'll see something on the top 10 onboards they do. I don't know, some Gasly doing some 360 overtake or something that we usually end up seeing afterwards. But no, I don't think I can see anything or did see anything.
I like these reactions, but it just doesn't feel like a normal reaction today. We've gone through the field, but of course there were only 12 finishers, weren't there? And we had all that chaos at the start that we went over. So 5 pit stops for most drivers today, but I think that includes coming to the pits during the red flag. So I don't know if that's the case. There's still pit stops, I guess, aren't they, because they're changing tyres, but there's not a huge amount to tell you strategy-wise other than that one. Just looking for longest stints. Everyone obviously did 8 laps on the first lap because it was then red flag. Mediums, the longest stint was, I think, about, what's that, 25 laps, something like that. So I just look at the Pirelli thing. It's not easy to make out on my phone, so I might have a look at that and I'll give that a retweet a little bit later. But yeah, strategy, apart from the talk between Hamilton and Bottas and a few undercuts, we didn't really see a lot in strategy because people didn't have to think about strategy quite so much. But I was quite, after the incident with Stroll, I was quite surprised to see everyone come into the pit lane, because when I saw Stroll's incident, you look at the barrier and how long it's going to take that car to clear, I did think maybe this will be a red flag as well. And I know that's easy for me to sit here claiming that with hindsight and knowing what happens, but I genuinely did think a red flag. So I suppose the team's down, they've got to react just in case it's not a red flag under the safety car, haven't they? And they've got to take that gamble. But with that benefit of hindsight, teams should have really waited and changed tyres under the red flag, which they did anyway, because then we got everybody on softs towards the end, which was good fun. But yeah, anything on strategy, Dan, that we can cover other than just chaos and crashes?
I mean, you're right with the safety. Well, the red flag at the end, it may have been worth a gamble of someone staying out a little bit, considering the carnage we saw last weekend. But yeah, I think we were kind of robbed a little bit of a really fun strategic race. It was really building up to be a 2-stop. The Red Bull's trying something different from the Mercedes. With Valtteri's issues, I thought maybe, I said a little bit earlier on, maybe we could see a similar thing to the first Silverstone race. So a little bit disappointing there, but I think what we got instead was also awesome. So no, nothing to add on strategy.
Edu says Gio had bad luck. I think everybody involved in that, he kind of just went into the back, didn't he, Gio? There was nothing he could do. I think it was sideways in the air at one point, wasn't he, going over one of the cars? Just got to say, I think you said at the start, Dan, thank you for the halo. Carlos Sainz would have been hit by something, flying debris at least. So, yeah, good job. Carlos, Ethan says, was 6th until he spun. So, yeah, again, it's difficult because he was 6th until he spun, but he spun at turn 2 of the first lap, so it's difficult to really get too excited about that. But I think Carlos would have been up there with Lando. McLaren didn't think they had the pace today, so I think he would have been in the points, which is a positive. But we can't really speculate on where people would have finished because they didn't. And if we start doing that, then Grosjean finishes 20th, mate. Sorry, it's all over for him, bless him. But yeah, should we do driver of the day then? Official one was Daniel Ricciardo. What do you think, chat? One surname, driver of the day. Do you agree, Danny Rick, or would you go with Nicholas Latifi? Why not? Give me your options in chat and I'll read a few out very, very shortly. Do you agree with Danny Rick, Dan? Danny Rick, Dan? Danny Rick, Dan. Danny Rick, Danny, Dan.
I knew what you meant. It's all good. Yeah, I think I would. I'd love to give it to Grosjean after that heroic drive. But I think, yeah, Danny Rick, it didn't quite get the result, but the drive itself was pretty stellar. And when you think he was in subpar machinery compared to that Mercedes, compared to that Red Bull, and he did try his best to take the fight to them, and he was so close to that podium. So, yeah, I think Danny Rick's the standout one for me.
I'm going to go Bottas.
Right, okay then.
I'm not really. I can't not give it to Alex Albon. If that had been somebody else's first podium, I'm going to give it to them as well. I think he drove well, overtook Daniel Ricciardo which, isn't easy to do. We know how Danny Rick likes to be super late on the brakes. He delivered with his team out of the race, which is what he needed to do. He will have been, I think he'd have been under huge pressure today as well. As soon as he will have been told Verstappen's out, he's going, oh God, this is it. I've got to do it today. And he did that. And I can't not give him driver of the day. I think he thoroughly deserves it. Yes, luck is involved. I'm going to have my moan now because I get really frustrated, Dan. I don't know about you in comments and on Twitter and with chat. I love you all, but it's so frustrating when it's like, oh yeah, but only because this happened, and oh, we got lucky, and oh, Gasly gets one lucky win. Absolutely, luck plays its part, but I just get really bored of having to turn around all the time and say because of luck. Yes, it's lucky, but Albon didn't stick it in the wall. Albon didn't crash out today. Gasly didn't crash out in Monza when others were and making mistakes in that. That's not luck. That's keeping your car on track when you need to. And I just get really bored of having to justify every decent result for a midfield team or an underperforming driver or a driver that's surprised with, oh yeah, but it was only because of luck. Can't we just enjoy the fact that Gasly won last week and Albon's got himself a podium today, and we had Norris on the podium in Austria and Kvyat in Germany last year, Gasly again in Brazil. Let's just enjoy that and just sit down and go, I can accept that if Verstappen had finished, maybe Albon wouldn't have been there, but he was there because he wasn't in the gravel in turn 2.
Exactly. I mean, you gave a far more passionate speech than I ever could just then, but I definitely agreed. I mean, it's kind of luck that Hamilton and Bottas didn't collide right at the beginning. It's luck that on that restart, Bottas didn't fall even further back down the field. So yeah, you're right. It does get a little bit tiring sometimes, but hey, I think you say it all the time. You got to be in the right place at the right time in Formula One. And that's exactly what most people did today.
You've got to get yourself in the right place to capitalise on that luck when it falls your way. That is my saying. It's what I like to, I go with it, and I'll stop banging that drum one day. I think it's because, here goes old man Sean again. I think it's because back in day, we didn't really have social media. So maybe if we'd had social media when you got that win for Hill at Belgium 98, you would have got things like, oh yeah, but only because this happened. And maybe it's because we didn't have that social media and somebody would have to write you a letter to let you know or give you a phone call, send a carrier pigeon to let you know that it's because of luck. Whereas on social media, you can get that instant opinion, can't you? It's only because it's luck. So that's probably what it is. And it's probably always been the same. But I'll get off my old man soapbox now. I apologise. I love social media, really. Elijah says Albon for driver of the day. Cringelord's gone with Danny Rick. Janus has gone with Albon. Arzar's gone with Albon as well. Linkler's gone with Russell. Ricciardo for Mario Master 02. Michael Heiss says Albon. Tim has gone with Leclerc. Brendan's gone with Ricciardo. Astro's gone with Danny Rick, driver of the day. LGW Aviation says Albon. William Stone's gone with Russell. Ben's gone with Albon. Sam's gone with Albon. Let's scroll down a bit further. We've got the usual Maldonado in there. No great surprise to see that. Guardian of the Blind says, Danny Rick. Unseen Shadow 13's gone with Albon. Annette, I'm shocked to the very core, has gone with Daniel Ricciardo. I can't quite believe that. Is it Grisha? Has gone with Kimi. Kimi for Raphael as well. Darius gone with Ricciardo. A lot of Ricciardo love, as you would expect, and Albon love. Seb Vettel for Luke Skywalker. Hanu's gone with Hamilton. Dan the Indoor Man's gone with Vettel. Scrolling a little bit further down to try and get a few more people in, not repeat the same, because I know some of you like to put it in a couple of times. Tonka Toy Truck's gone with Stroll. That's a good point. And I wouldn't put him as driver of the day, Dan, if I'm being honest. I think Albon, Ricciardo probably a little bit better today, but he crashed because his car had a mechanical issue. He was driving very well before that. So he gets a nod, doesn't he, does Lance, even though he's not finished.
Yeah, that was a good draw. I mean, what was it? 15 laps away from the end. So yeah, definitely deserves a nod.
Yes, we'll both nod. There you go. You can't see that. You better have nodded, Dan, or I'll be really cross with you. I won't be impressed, mate.
Don't worry.
Conan's gone with Hamilton as well. Danny's gone with Alex. Danny, Lance and Kimi did very well. Agree with that one. Albon for Jimmy. I think we can see it's going to be a lot of Albon and a lot of Ricciardo in there, isn't it? Daniel Kvyat. I just saw somebody say Sharon's gone with Kvyat as well. Grosjean for you, Seth. That's one for you, Dan. You'll be happy. Mr. Random Guy says Grosjean as well. So lots of good shouts there. I will give it to Albon. You've gone with, I've forgotten, Danny Rick. Why not? Some really good drives out there today, all things considered. And I think Lewis Hamilton, like Stroll, absolutely gets a nod because of the pressure he's going to be under as the leader with everything going on around him. But I can't not give it to Albon. I can't not. I've criticised him when he's not done very well, so I've got to give him all the love when he does very, very well. So good result. Of course, Lewis Hamilton now, 90 race wins. Yeah.
It's getting close, mate.
It is, mate. It is, mate. It's frustrating. No, it's fine. He deserves it. You can't argue that. And yes, it's the car, but as was pointed out by James Allison, there was a little Sky thing before the race about Ferrari and Michael Schumacher, which was nice to watch. And one of the people they were talking to, or Stefano Domenicali or something like that, people saying, oh, yeah, you can say that it's the car with Hamilton, but you could say the same with Schumacher. You could say that with most drivers. They are where they are because of the car. You put Schumacher in Minardi or Hamilton in a Williams, they ain't winning the world championship. So yes, there you go. Let's not get into that. That's a story for another day. But 90 wins, I'll say it again, a record I never thought was going to get beaten. 95 poles as well, Dan. I think that's going to be 100 by the end of the year. Quite an achievement in it, really. They're big numbers. I know we get more races these days, but they are big numbers.
They're ridiculous numbers. I mean, he could. I was going to say you could still get 100 wins this year, but there's 17, isn't there? So not
more,
quite.
I think.
So yeah, so not quite that one, but you're right. It is just stellar every single weekend, absolutely on it. And yeah, you're right. He does have the best car. He wouldn't win him in a Minardi. That's a tongue twister. He wouldn't win in the Williams, but he is just so consistent. We very rarely see mistakes. I mean, how shocking was it last weekend where the team made that mistake for him to come in and he still almost came back and got onto that podium. So yeah, very much deserved.
Yes, indeed. And I think Grosjean's nearly got as many podiums, hasn't he, as Hamilton?
I would like to believe that. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
He has podiums, does Grosjean. I
exactly.
thought... Do you know, I actually just not all banter aside, there was a point where I saw him kind of avoiding all the incidents where I thought, is this Grosjean's day? Are we going to see a big result like a 4th, 5th, 6th place for him because he's just somehow avoiding all the contact apart from that turn? How he kept going after turn 1, I don't know, but yeah. I was hoping he'd do well today. But if you've got any questions on the race, please do pop them in the chat. I'll answer as many as we can, or will answer as many as we can over the next few minutes. Just a quick heads up. It's been scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to be taking a short break. I'm going to take this coming week off from uploading content. Doesn't mean I'm going to be sat on my backside playing Fallout for all of it. I will for some of it. But I'm also going to be catching up with family, some family that I've not seen for a little while. So I'm going to take a few days before Russia. And then I'm going to be working on a few scheduling things to try and get some consistency on the channel rather than uploading on random days. Try and get back to a proper schedule and get back into some kind of rhythm. So no content unless there is some major news this coming week, so don't expect anything, but I'm not going anywhere. I will be back the week commencing Monday the 21st of September, building up to the Russian Grand Prix, which I'm very much excited about. I do feel like I need a break after that race, not going to lie, Dad, but at the same time I'm kind of like, I want to keep going now. That was actually really, really exciting, lots to talk about. But yes, so I'm nothing coming this week, but things will be back from week commencing Monday 21st. I've said that, I've put it on screen as opposed to the community section explaining a little bit more, but just so you know, the channel's not dead. It's not over. First proper break. I was ill back in April. Let's not get into that again. But I haven't had a proper break with not uploading for more than 3 or 4 days since June 2017. So I think I'm ready for one. I'm ready for one, mate. I'm not going to lie. I think we all need one. I was going to wait for Christmas, but screw that.
I definitely feel like you're poking the bear, saying that you'll only make videos if there's news. So everyone expect announcements for Haas driver lineups, Raikkonen retirements. We're going to see everything happening in this week.
Well, this is the thing. Part of me's tempted. Part of me is tempted to just keep saying that I'm not going to upload unless there's crazy news, and then everything's just going to go absolutely mad, isn't it? And yeah, but there you go. So nothing to worry about. Also, my YouTube bit, the usual bit that we do towards the end of the stream. Please do drop a like on the stream. That'd be massively appreciated. They don't always do brilliantly for likes, but people seem to enjoy tuning in. So please do drop a like. That would be massively appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. There'll be nothing, like I say, this week, but there'll be plenty after that. I'm going to throw this at you, Dan, super quickly while I get things set up for some Q&A and do some super chats and that. I'm going to ask you the question. Given the crazy and compacted schedule, do you wish you'd taken some time off whilst F1 was shut down for COVID?
I mean, it's a lot. I mean, what, 9 races in 11 weeks? Borderline, well, it just is unheard of. Yeah, it will be quite nice a week off. And then very much looking forward to Sochi. We always get great races there.
Yes.
So should be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not complaining, by the way. I just want to catch up with family. So there you go. We'll do some super chats. Let's have a look. What we got coming in. Granny Annie, thank you very much for your contribution. It says, buy a beer and have a nice break. I will buy a beer. I'm hoping that we can still go to pubs tomorrow. I think we can. I think you're allowed to hang out with strangers, but you can't go too close to your own family because... Anyway, let's not get into that one. Thank you very much to Blueprints We. Massively appreciate that donation. Is that 1,000 Swedish? SEK? I want to say Swedish. I'm going to Google that in a minute. It says the safety car turned off the lights. That's a point. Into corner 15, not corner 12, which means that Bottas could not slow down given its room between corner 12 and 15. Do you think it could have, just scroll down, contributed to Bottas running slow for so long and the subsequent crash? Thank you very much again for your donation. I really appreciate that. That came up in commentary that the safety car lights, I noticed they didn't go off till very late. Very, very late. I think it was it the last corner? They got turned off.
Yeah.
That is a really late call from the safety car, and I don't know if that contributed, Dan, because obviously Bottas then has got, normally you'd have maybe half a lap or at least the last sector to start to back up, whereas in that situation he's basically got to slam the brakes on, back everybody up, and then he's got to go nice and slow to avoid that. Obviously he's doing that to avoid the tow, but he's had to back up maybe even more, which could have contributed to the crash. So maybe it is the safety car lights that need to be addressed as well. Maybe there needs to be a minimum number of corners that the safety car has to have its lights off before, otherwise they've got to do another lap or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been a major factor, but I like that idea. I'm surprised they haven't already got that in place anyway. So... yeah, I mean, it certainly wouldn't have helped Valtteri, and I think some of those guys, especially further down the pack, probably were thinking, oh, we're getting quite a way through the lap now, we're surely doing another lap. So they're probably rushing and eager to get their tyres up to temperature. So, yeah, probably played some kind of factor. And like we said earlier, I think the whole thing just needs a little bit of a looking at from the FIA.
Yeah, like I say, just say, look, if in the race director's notes, they do enough of them, just say if the safety car ending instruction hasn't come by turn 12 or turn 11 or turn 10 or something, then you do one more lap and then we bring it in, maybe something like that. But I don't think it would have been a massive contributing factor. It would have been a factor to a point because Bottas normally would have a bit longer than that to back the field up, but what happened behind was just a reaction or as a result of people backing off and accelerating, trying to anticipate the safety car or Bottas going for it, really. So yeah, I hope they look at it in general because that could have been very nasty. It was a horrible accident, and Sainz again hurt his hand, poor guy. So it's that kind of sums up Formula One, doesn't it? Safety wise, he hurt his hand. Once upon a time, that would have been a hell of a lot worse. So they need to react to that now, the FIA, and say, right, let's maybe look at the safety car procedure. Maybe let's look at what we do with the safety car line. Do we go back to that? It's difficult, but Bottas had to back them up because he couldn't be slipstreamed down. But thank you very much, Bluesprint. Really appreciate that one. Very generous donation, very kind of you. Sujith says a day later, $1 short for Russell. Blueprints We again with another contribution. Thank you. He says in the first restart, the safety car lights off into turn 15. I think it's the same comment, but yeah, which means that Bottas could not give the safety car room. Like I say, I don't think it was a massive contributor, but I think it would have been something in the back of Bottas's mind. Sean, the C6 quad, Ferrari red Mercedes led the race for so many laps. Very true. Nice red safety car. I did like that. Loved the race director's notes just to let drivers know that the safety car is red this weekend, just in case somebody could, what's that in front of me that's got the flashing lights on and says safety car on the back? I have no idea. I quite like that. Sujith again, Russell got a gap in front of him, accelerated then stops. Maybe that caught out the guys behind. Could be. I think that, like I said, that was the problem in that midfield and that accident was people accelerating, braking, and maybe Russell was one of those. Need to see some more on boards for that one. Once again, massive thank you to Charles Edward Cheese for that $500 donation. Really appreciate that. And one more, I think that's from today. Is it Field? You could kill me for butchering your name, but thank you anyway. Says race of highs and lows. Highs, early race, Albon and Ricciardo. Lows, relatively boring fight for P1, Russell and Sainz. Overall, 7 out of 10. That's an interesting one, Dan. Out of 10, what would you give the race? I'd say about 7 seasons. Actually, not too bad, a 7.
Yeah, I'd say 7 or 8, to be honest. I mean, I always love a race where I'm right on the edge of my seat, and I can certainly say I was that most of today. 3 race start, that's an absolute dream. So, yes, a 7 or 8 for me.
Actually, yeah, whoever came up with that rule, that changed the rules where after a red flag, they have to have a standing start. I love you.
Definitely.
You should be knighted at the very least. That was such a smart call. I like that. I really, really like that. Let's take some questions from chat. Scroll. I did have one and then it reset. Vettel with 6 pit stops, says Sam. He had a lot. He did have 6. So did Raikkonen in the end. Just having a look at the race result there, just to double check. So yeah, 6. A lot of pit stops for a lot of people today, mostly because of red flags as well, though. Do you think Danny Rick will be able to regularly challenge for podiums next season in the McLaren Mercedes? Says Jack. What do you reckon, Dan?
I think it'll be similar to this season, to be honest. I think Ricciardo is probably slightly better than Sainz and Norris with all his experience and podium experience. But I think it will just be a season where one weekend McLaren are great, one weekend Renault are great, because the cars for the most part are going to be the same as this year. But I think he'll certainly be in the mix and is going to be great at McLaren.
Youssef says, how do you donate 1 million? PayPal, mate. I don't know. You can if you want. I wouldn't. Can Ruby K says, can Sean say Alpine again? There you go. Alpine. Why not? Do you think there will be rule changes under red flag conditions next year? That's from William. I don't think we'll see anything in the standing start thing because, like I say, that works to get everybody a little bit excited again because the start is probably the most exciting part of most races at the moment, isn't it? Let's be honest. So I think they will stick with that one. I don't expect to see a change to the tyre rule. I'd imagine there'll be some teams pushing for it though. If you've got a car or a driver who can really look after their tyres, it's going to be quite annoying from a team point of view, isn't it? If others who are not so good on their tyres under a red flag can change those without having to take a pit stop. So I could see some drivers and teams pushing for that, but I don't think that would come in. The only thing I see changing based on this weekend is probably, like I say, the safety car line situation. We discussed it last week, didn't we, Dan? But I don't think we think that rule needs to be looked at too much with the tyre changes, the red flag rules.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think we said last week there's so many different things that could have happened. I mean, you even look at the restart where we saw the red flag. Grosjean, for example, there could have been so many bits of debris in those tyres. It's just, I suppose, from a safety point of view, sensible just to make sure everyone changes just to avoid any kind of incident on an eventual restart.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I just try to think of something to add to that, but there's really not. Somebody just asked about Oscar Piastri. Sean, what were your thoughts on Oscar Piastri winning the F3 Championship? That's from Dan Philpotts. I felt for Logan Sargent. Got caught up in that first lap incident, didn't he? And I really felt for him because he was in control of that championship, if you like, as in control as you can be in Formula 3. So I kind of felt for him, but again, he's crashed out, so that's the way it goes. But I thought Porsche or whatever, Teo, I thought he was going to win that, Dan. There was just this part of me, the way he was chasing down Beckman, I thought he's going to do this. He's going to bloody do this. Go on, boy. What is he, 17? Makes you really think about your own life, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly the same. Gutted for Sargent. He's been so good this year. And to crumble right at the end, that must be so frustrating. But all three of them really consistent this year. I'd be surprised if they all didn't get promoted to F2. Very bright futures. And like you say, Porsche misses out by, I think it's 2 points in the end, but was 16 most of this season, turned 17. He'll be fine. I think he's part of the Sauber junior academy, which is quite strange, and wouldn't surprise me if the likes of a Ferrari or a Mercedes came sniffing in to make him a young driver, because he's been great. But all three of them, pretty awesome season. And what a way to end the season. Three drivers going into it could be champion was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I'm quite excited for a lot of the young talent coming through. And I think we're going to get that in F2 as well, with some good racing this weekend. So, but I like Pourchaire, or Pourchaire, however you say his name. I just could call him Teo. But yeah, I think he's been quite a revelation this season, given he's so young. But yeah, we'll come off feeder series. But yeah, and Schumacher leading F2, of course. Is he still after this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's even bigger now, actually, because he beat Ilott quite comfortably in the feature race, and I think he beat him in the sprint as well. So yeah, he is.
Is he a shoe-in? Shoe-in. Very good. Is he a shoe-in for that Alfa Romeo seat, do you reckon, Dan? Because they're all talking about him at Ferrari and trying to get him in the car for some FP1s this year, and he's very much the future. We talk about Schwartzman, we talk about Ilott. Is it becoming increasingly obvious that Ferrari are backing Mick Schumacher for F1? There's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah, I believe so. He's leading the standings, but in all fairness to him, there has been several mistakes, little mistakes that have cost him big this year. Even all the way back in Austria, I don't know if you remember when the fire extinguisher went off in his face when he was fighting in the podium. And when you think of those little things, he could be even further up. So I think he's ready now for F1. And yeah, all the talk, especially this weekend, but even in the build-up the last couple of weekends, I think, yeah, that's pretty much a guaranteed now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to... He had his fire extinguisher go off, didn't he? Was that this year?
Yeah, that was Austria, one of the first ones.
It's been stupid little things as well that have caught him out, haven't they? So, yeah, I think, actually, I mean, Ferrari in a very nice position, I personally think, with those three drivers on their books. I think they've got a great little academy there, Schumacher, Schwartzman and Ilott, so take your pick. But I still think Haas are going to fancy one of them if Schumacher does go to Alpha. But I'm just wondering... Just super quickly, Dan, do you think maybe Schwartzman needs another year in F2? He's been a little bit inconsistent this year. Been caught out as well.
Yeah, you know what? Up until a couple of weekends ago, I thought he was going to be clearly the championship winner, certain to move up to F1. But he's had a couple of difficult weekends. I think ever since Spa, his confidence seems to have been knocked a little bit. So... yeah, I think another year wouldn't hurt him. And I think definitely if he did stay another year, that gives, I don't know, a Haas or Alfa Romeo, whatever they decide to do, gives them a year to assess a Schumacher and Ilott, give Schwartzman that second year to build and prove that he is the real deal. Because Ilott and Schumacher, they're both in their second year, and they've moved on leaps and bounds. So if Schwartzman's already this good, I think next year he'll be fine. So... yeah, I think second year would be quite a good option. But I do think as well, he is good enough for F1. So either way, I think he'll be fine.
Thank you again to Blueprint Sui for the contribution. Really interesting comment, actually. He says, according to the Swedish broadcast, in the pre-race meeting, FIA had informed the drivers that the safety car lights would go out at the latest in corner 12. So if that's... obviously, the Swedish broadcast have said that. If their sources or their information is right there... I could see there being a bit of a kick-off from the drivers on this one and the teams. If they were told the latest would be turn 12 and they go out in turn 15, you can kind of understand if people get a bit miffed at that. Because that's I did not know that, so thank you for pointing that one out. So I can understand if maybe someone kicks off. I can say it's going to kick off. It always kicks off in Formula 1, doesn't it? Thank you to Charlotte as well for your contribution. Says Perez at Alpha would be a great mentor for Schumacher or Ilott. Checo Perez. He'll be somewhere. He's got to be somewhere. And Perez, for me, just feels like the natural replacement for Kimi Raikkonen. They're going to want the experience. So get Perez in that Alfa Romeo for 2021 if Kimi does retire. And I agree. It'd be kind of perfect alongside a Schumacher on paper. But what I would say is last time a young hotshot hops in a car versus Sergio Perez, his name was Esteban Ocon and they crashed a lot. I think there was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other in all of that. But I'm just making the point that Perez, if he's got a pacey young driver alongside him, might get a bit punchy. But in terms of his experience, that makes perfect sense, wouldn't it, for a Schumacher or an Ilott as a teammate?
Yeah, and for a team like Alfa Romeo, but also Sauber, where Perez made his debut, what a consistent driver to have, to know that if Schumacher does move up and there is potential he might struggle in Formula One, they know they've got a driver they can depend on. It's exactly like bringing Raikkonen back alongside Giovinazzi. They had that little bit of breathing space to know they've got a driver that they can spend a little bit of time with, that can learn from the experienced driver. And last year, of course, Kimi Raikkonen was great in that midfield. So I think we can both agree the majority of the teams would love to have a Sergio Perez in their car, and certainly a team struggling at the moment like Alfa Romeo, bargain to get Perez in a seat.
We're talking about this, and Gio, of course, is still there, but is he gone at the end of this year, Gio? Is he doing enough?
At the start of the season, I thought he was really, really good, consistently beating Kimi in quali and in the race. But of late, something just seems to not be going his way. And I don't know, it just doesn't quite seem to be coming all together for him. And if he wants to stay, I think he's going to need some big results over the next couple of weekends.
Yeah. Nice guy. I just think he felt like a stopgap when he got that seat. I think I said at the time, it just felt like he was there, see how he gets on, because they didn't have anybody ready, and now they've got 3 drivers who are possibilities for that seat. Maybe it's time for him to go. We shall see. Annette pointing out Perez in Alfa and Hulk in Haas. I think that's looking likely. I think Hulkenberg to Haas is a good fit. Alongside who, I don't know, is a difficult one, but we'll do some speculation on that. Not next week, the week after. Once I come back, I think that's a good idea. But if anybody's got any race-related questions, please do pop them in chat and I'll answer them. If not, we will probably call it a day. Thoughts on Guan Yu Zhou, says LGW Aviation. I like Zhou. I think he's been a bit... would you say inconsistent, a little bit up and down with his results this year, or is he another one that's been caught out? I follow it, but maybe not as closely as you do, Dan. You seem to know your stuff with F2.
Yeah. Only the last couple of years, but I love it, to be fair. I think he's been the most unlucky of anyone, Guan Yu Zhou, to be totally honest. I think he's awesome. Not the most consistent, you're right, that there are some weekends where he's outside that top 10 and has to fight his way back through. But even today, started, I want to say 17th, ended up 5th. He's so good at overtaking. He's one of those drivers that has a little bit of flair about him, sometimes gets it wrong. And I do hope, he's fighting against Christian Lundgaard, really, for a space in a potential Alpine seat in a couple of years. But yeah, I think he's really, really good.
There you go. I like him. I like him from what I've seen of him. So MKR Cinema says, do you think Max is out of the fight for second this year? 25-point gap? I still think the fight for second's on. I think the championship was done a couple of weeks ago, at least a couple of weeks ago. But I think the fight for second is still on. 25 points looks a lot. But if you think we've got tracks like Imola coming up, we don't know anything about that. We don't know how the Nürburgring is going to go. We don't know how Portimao is going to go, how Turkey will be. I would imagine they'll be pretty good. They'll be up there and in the fight in Russia. Maybe not for the win, but there's opportunities for Red Bull to pick up a win. And all it's going to take is for Bottas to fall into traffic at one of these races. Imola, for example, if you get a bad start in Imola and you're Valtteri Bottas or Lewis Hamilton, you're going to struggle to get back through, because overtaking there is going to be, well, it'll be tougher than Mugello. I believe that. I think it is such a narrow track, unless they're going to allow them to widen it with those green bits the other side of the curbs. I don't know, but I think they'll struggle to get back through Mercedes. So all it'll take is Verstappen to finish ahead of Bottas maybe for a couple of the next few races and then get a win at Imola with Bottas falling away, and all of a sudden he's right back in that fight. But I think the fight for second is on. It's the fight for fourth, which is incredibly close. So what have we got? Norris on 65 points in fourth. Ocon in 12th is, in air quotes, only 35 points off. But Gasly in 10th is only 22 points off fourth place. So that's, if the fight for second is over, that's your scrap now. Who's going to end up in fourth place or fifth place? I think Albon might fancy that fourth spot. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think second, surely one of the Mercedes is going to get a DNF at some point in this season. Their reliability is great and consistent is great, but you'd like to, from a Red Bull point of view, think at some point they're going to trip over themselves again. So maybe Verstappen can close it in. It's going to be difficult, but he's certainly got number one status there. But you're right, that fight for fourth, it's so good. It's not quite what we want. We'd love to see the fight for first, but we don't have that at the moment. But what we do have is a fight where drivers from 6 or 7 teams can be in that what is really best of the rest in 2020. And so far this year, I think it's changed almost every single weekend, and it's been brilliant to watch.
Martin Jones says best move of the day. Oh, Perez made it. I can't remember who it was around the outside of. Let me know, chat. I can't remember. I want to say, was it Albon? He made a really good move through. They were kind of side by side through a couple of corners. He made a really nice move around the outside. But I've got to be. I'm going to say it, and it's not just because you're here, Dan. I think Grosjean's is right up there. In the latter stages, He went round the outside of turn 2 and up the inside of 3, didn't he? Really nice move by Romain Grosjean late on. It was Albon, apparently, for the Perez one. So, I'm going to give Grosjean some love, and then that means you can't pick that one because I already picked it.
To be honest, I was going to say I can't remember the corner names, to be honest. There's that downhill kind of quick right left, and I think that one might have been Stroll. I think just before that one, I'm not. You might be right. Sorry, and I can't remember who it was. I kind of want to say either Stroll or Kvyat made a move there, but Albon made some great moves through turn 1 round the outside. I wanted to say Grosjean. You've taken it away from me, to be honest. So I'm going to have to say Albon on Ricciardo, because Ricciardo certainly wouldn't have wanted to give that up lightly. So yeah, I'll go with that one.
2 more questions then. I'm going to say this, and it might trigger something. Alexa says, what was the best chase today? Mine was Alex. Shut up. Mine was Alex chasing down Ricciardo for 3rd podium spots. That's my Alexa just going off. Anyway, best chase? I've just asked a question that I don't know the answer to. I mean, Russell chasing down Vettel was quite tense and dramatic towards the end because you're kind of egging him on to get that point. But I think the fight in general between Alex Albon and Daniel Ricciardo I really enjoyed, and Lance Stroll was in that mix as well. So I'd probably agree with you on that one. I think, yeah, Alex versus Ricciardo for 3rd place, because that's the best of the rest result, isn't it? 3rd place at the minute.
Yeah, I was thinking right at the beginning when Ricciardo was hunting down Stroll, just thinking, maybe this could be the day, finally. But again, happy with Alex getting the podium. And anyone in that midfield at the moment, it's great to see they're all getting opportunities. But basically anything involving Danny Rick today, that was the best fight of the day.
And Raul just says, who's your money on for 4th in the championship? I think Albon, if I'm being boring. If I'm being exciting, Lance Stroll.
Hey, I mean, he'd be there if he didn't have that crash today. I'll go with Daniel Ricciardo as an outside chance.
Apparently, I'm setting off everybody's Alexa right now, so there you go. Clansome says, biggest fail. Good to see you in chat, mate. Thank you for dropping me that message on Twitter last week, so I could sort that out for you. Good to see you in chat, and good to see it's all working now. That's the final question. Biggest fail of the day. Biggest fail? That is a tough question. Did anybody fail? I mean, Ocon's brakes was a pretty big fail.
Behind the safety car restart, that was a pretty big fail.
Oh, of course, yeah. I don't know, Sean, how about when they're all driving slowly and ploughed into each other? How about that? I was going literal there with brakes and obviously Stroll's tyre explosion. But yes, there you go. The safety car restart was the biggest fail of the day. I'm just going to go. Thank you very much, Dan. Great fun as always, and somehow you still managed to make me look like a total prat on stream. I will make a note of the date and get you back at some point in the future. But yeah, thank you, mate. I've decided I want you on. You can have a week off for Russia, and then we'll have you back for 3 in a row, because we've had some epic races just lately, and I'm sure it's because you've been on these streams. So let's keep doing that. You are the reason.
Well, thanks for having me, mate. It's been great talking about these races. They've always been a bit of carnage. And it's nice just, to get some of my Grosjeanisms off my chest after some crazy races. So thanks, dude.
No worries, mate. Massively appreciate it. And I will talk to you probably in a few minutes.
Cheers, man. Thanks for having me. See you later, chat.
Lovely. Thank you to Dan. Thank you to you guys as well. I hope you enjoyed that race. I know it was a bit, like I say, up and down. Thank you as well to the incredibly generous contributions tonight. Really appreciate that one. So, yeah, I'm going to disappear now. Like I say, that is it from me for this stream. I will be back. Don't worry. I'm going to keep saying, somebody genuinely messaged me like, are you quitting YouTube? No, I'm going for a break for a week. I know it sounds so stupid having to announce that, but I just want to make sure everyone knows I will be back. Don't worry. I'm going to take a week off now, work on some stuff. You might notice some of the changes when I come back to the channel. You probably won't notice many of them. Most of them will be behind the scenes and with scheduling, but hopefully a bit more consistency, which is what I'm aiming for. Watch-alongs. Currently set to return for the Russian Grand Prix onwards, including the race watch-along. Just waiting to sort out some live timing visuals for that one. So that should be back as well for Russia. So lots of stuff coming up the rest of this season, just not next week. So please do subscribe if you're new, and don't forget to drop a like on the stream as well before you disappear. That would be massively appreciated as well. Like I say, back a week on Monday. In the meantime, though, don't forget that you can, of course, follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.